Hey guys, in today's video I wanted to talk about the dark side of people pleasing. The shadow side, the selfishness that people pleasing really is. This is going to sound very harsh, especially if you're still in your people pleasing phase. But I am not speaking to those people. I'm not trying to put down anybody who's still there. I'm speaking to the people that are wanting to come out of it, and maybe to the people that have been out of it and we're able to see the duality. There is duality to everything that we do. As much as people pleasers, we want to think that we're doing something kind and good. You know, it is a very self-serving thing, and that's what I'm going to talk about. The self-serving, selfish part of being a people pleaser slash self-sacrificer. And I've been there. Trust me, I have been there. So I'm not trying to put anyone down. All right, let's get into it. I'm assuming this is not news to you, that you know that it is a very selfish thing to sacrifice yourself, your needs, and your wants in order to be liked by another person. Because at the end of the day, you are not doing it for them. You are not withholding yourself and your needs to make them happy. You're doing it to gain their approval and their likingness and love towards you. So it is not for them, it is for yourself, right? It is so you can be good with them, so they could have love or admiration or all that. So it's really for you. It's a very self-serving thing. I fully understand that it's a coping mechanism that we learned at a very young age, but it is a dangerous coping mechanism that can lead to burnout, resentment, and so much anger issues probably. Because when we self-sacrifice, we are all doing it thinking that it's for a greater good, that there's a higher thing that we're getting for our sacrifice, something that we're getting in return. We all have this unspoken agreement. I'm going to self-sacrifice this thing so that I can get this other thing, whether it's love or approval or anything else. We think there's something in it for us. We think that there's this quid pro quo. There's this deal of I'm giving this, but it's to get this other thing. And a lot of times we're not going to get the thing that we think this deal is supposed to give us. And that can definitely lead to anger and resentment because this other person did not keep up their end of the deal. It's so ridiculous, right, when you think of it like that, but unfortunately that's how self-sacrificing people pleasing is. That's how it works. We really are expecting something in return for our self-sacrifice that no one asked us to do. So because it's a deal that nobody made with us, that an agreement that we put onto this other person, it is actually unfair. It's literally unfair for that person to come and to be part of this agreement that they had no awareness of. Because at the end of the day, they do not owe us anything. They do not owe us anything because they were not aware of this deal that we made in our mind with them. So it's very unfair and very selfish to put that on another person. And a lot of times that resentment will turn into us being very passive aggressive towards the person who is not keeping up their end of the deal that they had no awareness of. So there's going to be some passive aggressive behaviors. There's going to be some possible mistreatment or seeing them as the villain, or like, you know, us villainizing them because they did not see our self-sacrifice and did not repay us accordingly, and they have now become the villain in our mind and in our eyes, and they honestly do not deserve it. There is some people who maybe are taking advantage of us, and maybe they do deserve for us to be upset, but honestly for the most part there could be people who, you know, did not agree to this, and it is not fair to bring them into it. It is not fair for them to be treated with passive aggressiveness. It is not fair for them to be put into a narrative that they did not ask to be part of. And I've been on both sides of this. I've been on the side of putting that other person into the deal, and I've been put into those deals. And both sides suck, but only one of them we can change and stop. Well, probably both, but both sides of that are very tough. And obviously the one where we're doing it to another person is where we have the most control. It's where we have the awareness and where we can put a stop to it. So let's talk about the ways that we can stop self-sacrificing and stop people pleasing so that we can stop being bitter or avoid getting bitter, resentful, and angry. I'm going to number them, maybe 1 through 5, but these are in no particular order. These are just the things I think. I think one of the best ones is to express ourselves and express our needs. I know that that is very tough to do because of our coping mechanisms that made us put our needs aside so that we can be loved or liked by our caretakers. So this is a challenging one. This is one that you have to start slow and start practicing and start voicing your needs and wants. And you could start so mildly by just stating something as simple as, what do you feel like eating? If you're the kind of person who can't even express things like that, because I do know some people pleasers who cannot, they don't even know what they like. They don't even know what they want because they have never had their own identity or their own voice. So it can start off with something very, very small, like I'd like to do this today, or I don't want to go do that. Well, the no's are very hard. The no's are like phase 2 or 3, but something that's very mild where you don't have to let people down, but you just pursue something you want. So that's a good place to start. And then eventually you can go into letting people down, which is my point number 2, is you are going to have to become okay with letting some people down. You're gonna have to work on that as well. It can start with something very, very small, where if somebody's like, hey, do you want to share this appetizer? And if you don't, you don't. And they're not going to be devastated. They're not going to, throw the table and scream and leave. I mean, unless they're psychotic, but it's okay. They're like, oh well. Most people are going to be okay with that. So you want to start with something very mild like that. Obviously not cancel big plans or anything like that, but if you just start voicing when you're not really up to something, if you stop withholding what you want whenever you don't want something, and you just speak your mind, and you can start with, like I said, very subtle things. Or even before somebody makes a plan, if somebody's like, hey, should we go do this? And when it's just a mild suggestion, you can say, I'd rather not, or things like that. And to me, I think those are really easy ways to get started before you go into actually letting people down or canceling or things like that. Or saying no to something that's being asked directly of you. So I would start with very small things and going just with things that are more like a preference, like, no, I'd rather not, or I don't want to do that, before you really feel like you're letting people down. So that is another thing, is to work on being okay with letting people down. Number three is to find a way to meet the needs you have. But before you can get there, you also have to start to become aware of the needs that you have. So if you have the needs of physical affection and hugs, instead of putting yourselves in situations where, like giving somebody a gift where you would get that affection in return, or like a hug or some appreciation, you can just search for that. You can just give your family member a hug, if that's what you want to do, without needing for them to come to you. You know what I mean? So it's really not going through the whole hoops of doing this roundabout way of getting a need met, but more about being able to figure out your needs so that you can get them met in the simplest way possible without having added manipulation to it. Because if you think about it, a lot of times our needs are met through manipulation. Not because we're bad people, not because we're manipulative people, but because we don't know any better. So you can get those needs met without manipulation, especially if you can figure out what those needs are. So it would be addressing your needs, figuring out, what do you love about this self-sacrificing thing? So for example, if I really liked self-sacrificing in the way of doing an act of service for somebody and giving them my time, it's because I want them to admire me, maybe, right? So another way to get some, if one of your needs is, admiration, you want to be admired, another way to get some admiration is by you doing something for yourself or something creative and then showing it to them, versus you doing something for them. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. So like, your admiration can be like, look, I made this painting. Look, I made this necklace. Or look, I made this. I created this. I have this garden. I have tomatoes. Do you want some? But you did it for yourself, and you can still get admiration for doing something for yourself. I don't know if that makes sense. But if you're aware that what you want is admiration, then show off some of the things that you have to be admired, because I guarantee that you have some, without you having to be admired through self-sacrifice or acts of service. I hope that one makes sense. Maybe it's a little all over the place, but it is to find out what your needs are and then to figure out different ways to get those needs met that do not involve self-sacrificing and people-pleasing. That is a two-part one. This one, the fourth one, kind of ties into the other one, and this one is so far out there for some of us, and it is to understand that it's all a matter of perspective, and unfortunately we are going to have to be the bad guy or the villain in somebody's life, and accepting that is going to shift your entire mentality. This is like 2.0 of stop being a people pleaser, because I know at first the thought of us being the villain in somebody's story is horrifying, gut-wrenching. That's how I would feel if I thought that somebody thought that I was the bad guy in their life. I would bend over backwards to make sure that I was not the villain, because I'm supposed to be the hero, and I always wanted to be the hero in everybody's life. Every single person that knew me, I wanted them to think of me as a hero. But that goes back to the thing that I've said before, that by being the hero to everyone, you're actually could be the villain for someone else. For example, one of the best examples that I always give people is if you are very kind and nice to everyone and don't have any boundaries, you are going to treat a person that's a really bad person that mistreated another person with that same kindness and acceptance, and by doing that you are hurting the person that they hurt. I don't know if I could say this word, but I always think of men that have hurt young people and young women. The P word, I don't know, can you say pedo? Those people. If you know somebody is that, and you're treating them with kindness and acceptance, you are being cruel to their victim, because you cannot be kind to both at all. You can't be kind to that person without almost invalidating this person. You can't do the whole, well, that person didn't do anything wrong to me, which I hate that. I hate that sentence so much when people justify their people pleasing, and when people justify their being kind to an absolute vile person with that line of, well, they haven't done anything wrong to me. That sentence is invalidating and telling a victim that their pain is invalid to you, because as long as it's not your pain, you are 100% okay with that person. Even if you aren't, even if you're kind of bothered by it, but you don't have the guts to stand up for yourself, they're still getting that message. So you are still somewhat being the villain. So do you want to be the villain to the victim, or do you want to be the villain to the pedo? I would choose be the villain to the pedo. So that would mean to not invite that pedo around, or not interact with them, or set some boundaries with those kind of people. Obviously that's kind of an extreme case, but I don't know if that makes any sense. So it is being okay with being the villain to some people, and knowing that there is no way around it. Sometimes we are going to be the villain in somebody's story, and a lot of times it's going to be manipulative, unkind people that we're going to be the villain to, and we're going to have to be okay with that in order to be kinder to other people, and in order to be kinder to ourselves. And why would we want to interact with manipulative, toxic people like that anyways, you know? So it is knowing that sometimes you are going to have to be the villain in somebody's story, and being okay with it. That is number 4, to accept that. Number 5, The number 5 thing, I don't know if it's a thing to do more than it is a thing to keep in mind. Keep in mind that by healing yourself and by healing the things in you that made you a people pleaser / self-sacrificer / manipulator, you are ending toxic cycles. You are healing your lineage. You are healing your bloodline. You're healing all the things and undoing a lot of the cycles, and just you are bringing so much good to the world. And yes, ultimately you are a people pleaser because you have a good heart. You've just been going about it the wrong way. But by healing those things in you, you are healing your children, your grandchildren, because they will not be raised by a person who was raised by a manipulative people pleaser. You are helping everybody around you. If you set boundaries with the person that you might be enabling, you are helping them heal and move forward, even if they don't see that. It is for the greater good. You are healing yourself and the people around you, because as much as hurt people, healed people also heal people. And I don't know about you, but I want to be on that side. I want to be a healer. I want to be on the side of improvement, of accountability, of growing and healing, and just ending so much of these toxic generational traumas that have been perpetrated over and over again in our families. So if you just keep that in mind, that it is for this greater good, some of these things might seem a little bit easier. Again, this is one of those videos where I'm not sure if I'm going to post it. I just feel so weird talking about this stuff, but I know I need to start putting things out there, and I know that it'll get easier and I'll get more comfortable doing it. And maybe eventually some of these things will start to make sense, and maybe eventually I'll find my people. So that's kind of it. I really hope that this video reaches just one person that is struggling with this, that it could help. It would mean so much to me to be able to help another person. So that is all for this video. Let me know if you guys know of any good books or anything regarding this topic. I mean, you can read the book, The Art of Not Giving an F, but honestly, that one is... I read that when I was still in my people-pleasing phase, and although it sounded really, really good, it seemed a little unrealistic for me, but I feel like that's where I'm headed, and I would love to be there, you know? But that's a good book. Another good book that I know is good for men, not necessarily for women, is No More Mr. Nice Guy. I'm really, really trying to get my husband to read that book right now. That's all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're here at the end, you don't understand. You're my person. This was supposed to happen. This interaction was supposed to happen. And I don't know if it's 2 of you, 5 of you, 10 of you, but you're special to me. You mean something to me. If you're here, I know you and I see you in a way that you can't imagine. Okay, thank you guys. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.